Hello. My wife likes to watch a TV program called Escape to the Country, where people who live in large cities want to move to a rural area, and the host of the show finds these people, usually middle-aged couples, a suitable house. When I watch this show, I often wonder about what the property hunters will do when they run out of milk or bread or some other essential like wine on a Friday evening after 8 o'clock, or how they'll travel to the nearest railway station to get to work when there's been a heavy snowfall, and how bored they'll be. The reason these people wish to move to the countryside is that they would prefer a less hectic lifestyle. We know that living in a city means suffering from the effects of noise pollution and air pollution, and it can feel stressful as people always seem to be so busy. A recent study by Matthew White from the University of Exeter's Medical School and his research colleagues suggests that for those living in cities, it's a good idea to get into a more natural environment for at least 2 hours per week. In fact, the title of the study is "Spending at least 120 minutes a week in nature is associated with good health and well-being." So that is the topic of this talk. I'll firstly define what the authors mean by nature, then look at the methodology of the research before looking at the results, and then finish off with a look at what some doctors are doing in relation to this idea. Firstly then, let's just clarify what the authors mean by nature, because it's not only the countryside far away from towns and cities. It also includes open parks located within towns and cities, as well as beaches and the coast. Basically, anywhere where you can hear the birds sing, see grass, trees, and other natural vegetation and wildlife. So a city dweller does not need necessarily to travel out of the city into the countryside. A trip to the local park will suffice, and for just 2 hours per week. To me, that doesn't seem like very much at all. I live in a town and I work in a city, but having a dog and travelling to work on a bicycle means I get at least 2 hours of time in nature every day. Unfortunately for me, that does not mean that I am likely to be a lot healthier and have much better well-being than someone who spends only 2 hours a week in nature. The results of the research were quite interesting in terms of the time spent in nature. Before I look at the results, though, I'll describe the method of research. So nearly 20,000 people were interviewed about the amount of time they had spent in nature in the previous 7 days, and they reported their own levels of physical health and well-being. For health, they could respond with one of these: very bad, bad, fair, good, and very good. For well-being, the participants were asked to rank overall how satisfied they are with life nowadays, and responses were from 0, not at all satisfied, to 10, which is completely satisfied. You might think that these two questions are not very reliable. One respondent may have caught a cold in the last day and therefore report poor health. Another might be going through some uncertain times at work, so may not feel very satisfied with life. In addition, socioeconomic levels also play a part in life satisfaction and indeed health. So this also plays a part in how people respond. The article does go into some detail about how these variables were controlled in order to make the results more reliable, but I don't want to go into that particularly. So moving on to the results then. Only 73% of those people who spent up to 1 hour per week in nature reported good health. It was even less, 69%, in those who spent no time in nature. In terms of well-being, only about 58% of those who spent no time or up to 1 hour in nature reported high levels of well-being. which means that 42% reported low levels of well-being. When that time in nature reaches 2 hours per week, the high levels of well-being is 65%. It's not such a massive jump, but it does suggest that 2 hours in nature does improve your well-being. In terms of health, spending 2 hours in nature, 84.5% of people reported good health, compared to 34.5% reporting poor health. Remember, this is compared to 69% of people reporting good health when they spent no time in nature. So that is quite a positive jump. Now, as I said earlier, I spend at least 2 hours a day in nature due to my dog and my bicycle, but that doesn't mean I am even healthier and have even better feelings of well-being. You see, the results don't continue to improve the more time people spend in nature. At 5 hours or more per week, the results have not changed very much at all. For 5 hours, good health was reported by fewer people in actual fact, and feelings of better well-being was reported by only a few more people. As the authors state in their paper, positive associations peaked between 200 to 300 minutes per week with no further gain. They also found that it did not matter how the 2 hours of time in nature per week was achieved. It could be a number of short visits or one longer visit. Although the study did not aim to find out why people feel better for spending time in the countryside, it's likely that the quiet and the tranquility of the countryside is relaxing and allows the brain time to start to process all of the things that are going on in our hectic lives. And my final point is about what doctors are starting to do with this wealth of information about stress relief from being in nature. In some parts of the UK, doctors have started to tell patients to go for a walk in the countryside instead of, or in addition to, prescribing tablets. In Dundee, in Scotland, for example, a trial of what they call green health prescriptions was launched in April 2019. Nearly 3/4 of people who took part in an online survey agreed that this idea was a good one. So, to conclude, although the results of the study are not so dramatic, the evidence for escaping to the countryside for at least a couple of hours a week is quite compelling. Thank you.